Chapter 1 On Assembly. Don Santiago de los Santos, or better known as Captain Tiago, prepared a fancy banquet. Because he was a good man and known throughout Manila, the news about the gathering to be held on Calle Anluwagi immediately spread. On the night of the gathering, Tiago's cousin, Aunt Isabel, flocked to the crowd. Among those present were Padre Sibayla, Lieutenant Guevara, the couple Dr. D. Ispadanas and Doña Victorina, Padre Damaso, and a newly arrived foreigner in the Philippines. The foreigner asked about the Filipinos, including the Indios. When the tobacco monopoly was mentioned, Padre Damaso spoke badly about the Indios. He despised them, and Father Sibayla changed the topic. The departure of Padre Damaso as parish priest of San Diego was discussed. Damaso said that the King of Spain should not interfere in punishing heretics. The lieutenant said the punishment was appropriate. The lieutenant explained the real reason for his transfer to another parish. This was allegedly because he dug up a body of a nobleman who had been accused of being a heretic because he simply did not want to confess. Padre Damaso was angry because of what the lieutenant said. Father Sibayla came to calm the fellow friar. Damaso also remembers the missing important documents. Both sides calmed down and the lieutenant left the crowd. The discussion and storytelling of the guest continued that night. Lesson of Chapter 1. This chapter shows the bad behavior of some Filipinos. Like Padre Damaso, who is cynical of Filipinos, but he himself is involved in corruption. Often, people who insult others are even dirtier than those they accuse. Chapter 3. The Dinner. This chapter talks about the dinner Ibarra went to. At this feast, he saw Priest Sibayla and Padre Damaso. Priest Sibayla's face clearly showed his pleasure in attending, while Padre Damaso looked very irritated. Everyone was enjoying and fondly partying. Captain Tiago's guest praised the delicious food he prepared. The lieutenant also attended, to which Doña Victoria resented him for observing her hair. Ibarra sat in the middle of the table. At the other end of the table, the two priests were arguing over who would sit next to Ibarra. When the food was ready, the guest began to partake. Ibarra talked to the guest and told them where he was. The people around Ibarra learned of his experiences in the past years of his adventure abroad. He also shared what he was learning, apart from the language, such as the different histories of the country he went to. Lesson of Chapter 3. This chapter shows that it is important for a person to learn how to get along with other people, because the time will come when you will need their help, and so that you will not have an enemy. It is also important to be patriotic even if someone has done something bad to you. Chapter 4. Heretic and Filibuster. Ibarra continued his journey. One day, he realized that he was not sure which place he had landed in. This was until he reached Mount Liwasan. He saw that nothing much had changed. The place where he grew up is still the same as before. He turned his attention to the surroundings as he reflected on his memories of that place. Lieutenant Guevara told him about his father and his father's bitter experience. A year before Ibarra returned to the Philippines, he received a letter from his father. His father, Don Rafael, sent him a letter saying he should not worry. The lieutenant told Ibarra all the details of his father's life, why he was imprisoned and why were many angry at him. The reason for his father's imprisonment, the accusations against him when he was in prison, until his release from his cases. When his father was supposed to get out from prison, he died inside the prison. Lesson of Chapter 4. In this chapter, we will see that not all defendants of the law are sinners. Don Rafael was a kind and dignified man who was accused of blasphemy by his fellow man. But even though he did not do the accusations against him, he faced them even against his feelings and being. Chapter 7. An Idol on an Azotea. This chapter discusses romance and dealing with an important responsibility in life. Aunt Isabel is a devotee of the Catholic Church. She used to go to church every morning with her niece, Maria Clara. After Mass that day, Maria Clara hurried home, something that angered her Aunt Isabel. From the balcony of their house, the young woman, Maria Clara, was restless. She is waiting for the arrival of her boyfriend, Ibarra. Almost 7 years has passed without the two lovers meeting. Ibarra did arrive, and the two spent their time remembering about their past since they were very young. Maria Clara looks back on her life at Beaterio, or the convent, while Ibarra is on his studies and adventures in Europe. Maria Clara criticized Ibarra for leaving to study, but the young man responded quickly. He said he moved away to do the more important things, education for the good of the future of the people. Their conversation was cut short when the young man Ibarra suddenly remembered his deceased parents. He quickly said goodbye and went home to catch up with the oncoming All Souls Day. Lesson of Chapter 7. Lesson of Chapter 7. In life, sometimes it is necessary to tolerate and put other things aside. There is a proper time to set aside for all desires. Chapter 13. Signs of Storm. Ibarra went to the alleged grave of his father, Don Rafael, with an old servant. The old man told Ibarra that Capitan Tiago had built a tomb for his father. The old man added that he planted adelpha and sampaga flowers and put a cross on them. Ibarra saw the grave digger and asked where the tomb was. The grave digger immediately remembered what they were referring to Ibarra. However, the undertaker told the two that he had burned the cross and dumped Don Rafael's remains in the lake in accordance with Padre Garotti's order. Ibarra's face could not be painted due to the anxiety he felt, while the old man cried. He couldn't imagine that someone had not paid homage to his father's corpse. He left the tomb and met Padre Salvi holding his cane. Although he had never met the priest, he confronted him and asked why his father had been blasphemed. Father Salvi was afraid to answer and said that Ibarra was wrong. He pointed to his fellow friar, Padre Damaso. Ibarra realized and immediately left the priest in question, even though he had not yet apologized to the accused Padre Salve. Lesson of Chapter 13. In this chapter of the novel, we learn that the deceased, including the corpse, must be honored. Any insult done to the deceased will cause trouble because it is disrespectful. Chapter 23. Fishing. This chapter shows one of Maria Clara's days as she returns home to downtown San Diego. She was accompanied by her best friends, Iday, Victoria, Sinang, and Neneng, on the beach and talked and joked. It was early in the morning, and there were some young people, young women, and some old women walking to the boats parked on the shore. They were carrying food. They boarded the boat. The girls are in one boat because the boat will sink if they all aboard. Each maiden is accompanied by a young man. Maria and Ibarra are together, while Victoria and Albino are together. A man named Elias paddles the two boats into the sea. He also served as the pilot of the boats. They happily gazed at the lake. Maria played and sang kundiman. Everyone was happy at the picnic when suddenly Elias found a crocodile. Elias, Ibarra, and other young men helped kill the crocodile. Elias thanked Ibarra for saving his life. When everything was calm, the friends went fishing and picnicking. Lesson of Chapter 23. Friends are important in our lives because they will be our support when we need help. They also add value and joy to our lives. Chapter 31. The Sermon. In this chapter, Rizal describes the people who sanctify themselves behind their evil deeds, right within the church. A large barn was arranged to serve as a church for the feast mass. Guests and town officials arrived early to witness the entire mass and listen to the holy word. Even ordinary people did not hesitate to listen to the sermon that the preacher would give. Prominent people have space and seats, while the poor sit on the floor. Everyone patiently waited for the long arrival of the guest of honor of the Mass. This is none other than Padre Damaso. As the priest walked to the altar, he greeted the people close to him one by one. He also greeted Ibarra, winked at him, and said that he did not miss all his prayers. Lesson of Chapter 31. Always remember that the right of the rich and the poor in the prayer house is equal, and there should be no distinction. Chapter 33. Free Thought. In this chapter, Rizal gradually removes the mask of the people who have ill will towards Ibarra. He reveals their secret and evil intentions. The derrick was prepared early for the special ceremony to be held in the town. At the same time, the mayor, other town leaders, and friars, except Padre Damaso, arrived with a music band. On this occasion, the place where the new school will be built was inaugurated. Ibarra was among the guests because he was one of the organizers of the said project. After the cornerstone was blessed and dropped, one by one the guests placed a spontaneous mixture. The mayor started it until it was Ibarra's turn. Before Ibarra went down to the pit to place the stone, the derrick bamboos suddenly broke and the ground thundered in the pit. Ibarra survived certain death. It was here that Ibarra thought of the warning that Elias had given him. Lesson of chapter 33. Nothing is lost if a warning is valued, whether you know or not the person who said it. Always be careful and be patient. Chapter 34. The Lunch. This chapter presents the full story behind the tragedy that occurred at the cornerstone ceremony. Senor Crisostomo Ibarra had just finished dressing when the unexpected guest arrived. This is the mysterious Elias. Even before the latter could speak, Ibarra immediately expressed his gratitude. "That's not enough," Elias humbly replied. He soon began to talk about what he knew about the young man. He reminds Ibarra to beware of the enemies that always surround him. He also said that the escape of the derrick was not an accident. Instead, it was deliberately planned for his doom. Elias helps Ibarra as he sees all the goodness of the late Don Rafael. Because of Elias' confessions, he asked him when they would meet again. Elias slowly replied, "I'm only here when you need my help." Lesson of chapter 34. Planting the seed of goodness is rewarded at the right time and at the right opportunity. Chapter 36. The First Problem. In this chapter, Ibarra's courage is shown as he gradually awakens the spirit of his liberal colleagues. The unrest in the town spread quickly. The attitudes and beliefs of the people were divided. From the side of the younger ones, they were very impressed with the courage shown by Ibarra. They were happy and retaliated when the priest slapped a young Manila man. Meanwhile, the older women had doubts and fears. It is said that their children may imitate Ibarra's behavior when they also send them to Europe. Others are like Capitan Maria Clara, who bravely defended Ibarra. This incident signaled Don Filipo's group, liberal organization, to unite and stand up. He encouraged his members to unite as the priest did. Lesson of chapter 36. Age should not be used as the basis for determining who is right or wrong. Even when you are young, you have the right to stand up and fight for what is right. Chapter 42. The Ispadanas. Don Tiburcio and Doña Victorina de Ispadana arrived in Capitan Tiago's house with a man named Linares. Don Tiburcio is a pretending doctor. He came from Spain but never returned there and got married here. Tiburcio used to be a hospital cleaner. When he settled in the Philippines, he suffered. When he married Victorina, he pretended to be a doctor, following the advice of some friends. The couple was able to make a living because of the number of people who came to him for treatment, even though he was a fake doctor. Don Tiburcio immediately went to the sick Maria Clara. He sought for Maria Clara's pulse and told that the girl would be cured. He prescribed Maria Clara with liquin and milk, Jarabe de Altea, and 2 pills de Sinaglosa. Tiburcio, on the other hand, introduced Linares, who had already fascinated with Maria Clara. Later, Padre Damaso arrived, who had just recovered from his illness. Lesson of chapter 42. Some people are able to impersonate others for their own benefit. They are willing to deceive just to elevate themselves and not to think of the negative effect it will have on their neighbor. Chapter 43. Plans. In this chapter, The three personalities of Don Tiburcio, Doña Victorina, and Linares are introduced. They are characters full of hypocrisy and lies. Captain Tiago's former home, that was happy and noisy, has been replaced by sadness and silence. The windows were closed to block air from entering the room of the sick Maria Clara. Cousins Tiago and Isabel were quietly talking about saints when suddenly the guest arrived. They are the couple Tiburcio and Victorina, along with the young man Linares. Don Tiburcio is known as the doctor who specializes in all kinds of ailments. But the truth is, he is a fake doctor. In fact, he was once imprisoned for his lies. Despite this, Tiago still has a lot of trust in the fake doctor because of the deceptive words of his wife, Doña Victorina. Lesson of Chapter 43. The world is full of false and disguised people. Be critical and inquisitive so as not to be eventually deceived. Chapter 51. Changes. Linares was upset because of the letter from his cousin, Doña Victorina. The young man wanted to challenge the lieutenant. He knows Doña Victorina is serious, but he is hesitant because he doesn't have a godfather. Meanwhile, Padre Salve came to Capitan Tiago's house. He happily announced the Archbishop's decision to annul Ibarra's excommunication, at the same time praising Ibarra pleasantly but with fury. Padre Salve also said that Padre Damaso was the only obstacle to forgiving Ibarra. But when Maria Clara is said to have talked to Padre Damaso, Ibarra will surely be forgiven. Later, Ibarra arrived with Aunt Isabel. Padre Salve shook hands with Ibarra and said that he only praised the young man. After a while, Ibarra approached Sinang to talk to Maria Clara. However, Sinang said that Maria Clara just left and said to forget about her. But Ibarra wanted to talk to his girlfriend. However, Maria Clara stiffened and did not face Ibarra until he left. Lesson of Chapter 51. Sometimes it is necessary to stay away from someone, even if you are important to him. It has its own reasons that we should only respect. Chapter 55. The Catastrophe. In this chapter, the commotion of the people in downtown San Diego is shown. It was dinner time, but Maria Clara had no appetite. She invited Sinang to play the piano. On the other hand, Padre Salve walked around the hall. While waiting for Ibarra, Maria Clara and her friends are restless. When it was 8 o'clock in the evening, the priest was in the corner while the friends did not know what to do. When the bell rang, suddenly Ibarra came, looking wasted in his clothes. Maria tried to approach the boyfriend, but a gun suddenly exploded outside. The people were scared and hid. There were people shouting, "Robber!" inside the hall. When the riot was over, the Alperes made sure there was no danger outside and made sure everything was in order. Lesson of Chapter 55. In this chapter, you will learn the lesson that it is not easy to forgive, but it is also not easy to leave those who helped you on the air.